A very good evening and welcome. This is News First Weekend Primetime News here on MTV Sports and Shakti TV. I'm Ramesh Rivalbanda. Let's start off with a look at your headlines.
Sri Lanka's democratic changes applauded by the US. US Secretary of State agrees to support Sri Lanka on assets recovery. A response to the questions raised over a ring in Parliament. The procession carrying the sacred relics reaches Kalania amidst the homage of thousands of devotees.
Now, US Secretary of State John Kerry, who arrived in the country this morning on an official visit, held several discussions with a number of high-ranking officials in the country today. Incidentally, it is after a lapse of 43 years that a US Secretary of State arrived in the country.
The last time a US Secretary of State visited Sri Lanka was in 1972, which saw the arrival of William Pierce Rogers. Although Secretary of State Colin Powell visited Sri Lanka in 2005, it was not considered as an official visit. US Secretary of State John Kerry, who arrived in Sri Lanka today, was once a US presidential election candidate. He is the 68th United States Secretary of State. US Secretary of State John Kerry met Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena and engaged in discussion this morning. John Kerry had inquired into Sri Lanka's friendship with China and India. President Sirisena had said that with regard to foreign relations, he follows a central non-aligned program. The US Secretary of State had also agreed to the request made by President Sirisena to provide training to the officers attached to the Criminal Investigation Department and the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery and corruption to curtail corruption. John Kerry had also agreed to the requests made by the President to support Sri Lanka's efforts to locate the money hidden away by certain Sri Lankans in foreign banks. John Kerry had gone on to say that positive environment in Sri Lanka will attribute to the recommendations that will be presented to US President Barack Obama on his Asian tour for next year, so he may also visit Sri Lanka. US Secretary of State John Kerry also held a discussion with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees. US Secretary of State John Kerry, who arrived at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, made a joint statement with Mangala Samaravira, the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Today we talked about the enormous progress that Sri Lanka has made in just a few short months, and progress that can be measured, progress on restoring democratic institutions, progress on creating more accountable governance, the passage of the 19th Amendment in which the President kept his promise to reduce powers of the presidency and move them more to the people through a broader sharing, is an example of that. Progress in combating corruption, and progress on reconciliation that can lead to a much more enduring peace and to shared prosperity for all Sri Lankans. So many people are suffering in Nepal from the devastating earthquake that struck 1 week ago. And I want to commend the government and the people of Sri Lanka for quickly sending response teams to Kathmandu. Many challenges and difficult decisions obviously still lie ahead, and we talked about many of them this morning. But one thing that struck me was the readiness of this government to open its doors and to open its minds to different ideas and to new and more effective and efficient ways of doing things. One thing about this Sri Lankan government seems very clear. The President, the Prime Minister, and the Foreign Minister are not afraid of tackling tough issues. They're willing to make difficult decisions, and they are committed to keeping their promises. We've seen that with the 100-day plan. And as the government heads into the parliamentary elections this summer, Sri Lankans will continue to rely on their tremendous leadership and commitment. So I am here today because I want to say to the people of Sri Lanka that in this journey to restore your democracy, the American people will stand with you. We intend to broaden and to deepen our partnership with you. And we will soon have members of that team from the Treasury Department and from the Commerce Department come here in order to work with the government on the economic measures that can be taken to provide for greater investment and greater growth.
Today, Sri Lanka is well on its way to becoming a fully fledged parliamentary democracy, laying the foundation for a new Sri Lanka built on the pillars of democracy and ethnic harmony. This will allow us to reap the fruits of increased economic growth and prosperity, which have been eluding us for nearly 2 decades because of the ethnic conflict. Ensuring accountability in the new Sri Lanka will feature as a key component of the reconciliation process, and the architecture of a domestic accountability mechanism with international technical assistance, as promised by our manifesto, are now being planned. In this context, there are also several areas where the United States can assist us by enhancing local capacity and providing technical expertise.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry also visited the historical Kalaniya Raja Mahaviharya this afternoon.
Delivering a statement in Colombo this evening, visiting U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said that no nation, including the United States, has a perfect record on human rights.
Now the problems of Sri Lanka are clearly going to be solved by Sri Lankans. That's the way it ought to be, but it's also the only way it's going to work. And you wouldn't have it any other way. So if there are steps that the United States can take to help, we will do so. I know you have your own plan and your own notions about what is necessary. And by no means whatsoever do we intend to try to usurp that or invade that or dismiss that. That would be inappropriate and unwise at the same time. The new government that you've elected is laser focused on establishing a strong reputation for your country on human rights. And the United States could not be more supportive of that goal. No nation, including the United States, has a perfect record on human rights. We all have to do our best in order to improve, and I hope that the momentum that has been created in Sri Lanka will continue to build, and I'm confident that with the government you have and their commitments to me reiterated today, I have no doubt that you will.
After addressing a group of politicians and professionals, the U.S. Secretary of State also spoke to reporters.
Reconciliation is a very difficult task with many different components. And I urged the Foreign Minister to work with the ICRC, International Red Cross, and the UN in order to investigate missing persons cases and to search for the answers wherever they may lead. And however painful in some cases the truth may be. They talked to me about a Truth Commission and other efforts, developing the process, working with the UN, and I know they are really deeply committed to working this through. The Foreign Minister and I agreed that the voices of civil society are essential to secure a lasting peace, and that also includes particularly the voices of women. The United States is ready to help asset recovery and the enforcement of anti-corruption rules. It's why we continue to urge the government to release remaining political prisoners, and it's why we're prepared to furnish whatever legal and technical assistance Sri Lanka may need as it moves down this path in the days ahead.
Minister Sajid Premadasu says that the arrival of U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry to Sri Lanka is an opportunity to declare to the world the country's revival.
දශක ගණනාවකට පස්සේ ඇමරිකාවේ විදේශීය ලේකම්.
After decades, the US Secretary of State has come to our country today. In the past, all the Western nations led by the United States of America were angry with our country. Vigorous activities in our country were criticized. Human rights resolutions were brought forward against the country. But my dear friends, this government of good governance has been able to ease the tensions between the international community who was against us and transform the powerhouses in the West as Sri Lanka's allies.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා මාතෘභූමියේ හිතවතුන් බවට පරිවර්තනය කරන්නට.
Minister Sajith Premadasa made this statement while attending an event to distribute equipment to sports clubs which come under the purview of the Tangol Divisional Secretariat.
The procession carrying the sacred relics to the Sirasa Vesak zone organized by the Capital Maharaj Organization Limited and John Keel's Holdings reached the Kalaniya Raja Mahavihara today. The procession reached the temple in the midst of devotees who had gathered to pay homage to the relics.
The sacred Sarvana relics and the relics of the Maharahat Theros, which will be placed at the Vesak zone commemorating the 3 stages of the life of Lord Buddha, were carried in a procession starting from Kanti. Subsequent to the Teva ceremony held at the Nelligala International Buddhist Center, the procession reached Kalaniya after travelling for 4 days, along a route of 204 kilometers. Devotees in their large numbers lined up the streets to pay homage to the sacred relics across all the villages and cities the procession passed over the past 4 days.
සිරස මෛත්‍රී වුණා නිකන් දකින්න මේ කරපු පින.
හරි සන්තෝසයි සිරසෙන් කරන දෙයට. සංසාරික ලොකු පිනකට තමයි මේ විපාක දුන්නේ අද වන්ද ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙච්ච එක.
ශාල සෙනගකගේ ආශිර්වාදයේ පූජනාව ලැබමින් උන්වහන්සේට
Devotees in their large numbers gathered to pay homage to the sacred relics. Devotees will continue to pay homage to the relics tomorrow as well. And the honor that the MTV Embassy Network is showing to these relics will be appreciated by everyone.
මස්ත බෞද්ධ ජනතාවගේ අගය කිරීමට ලක් වේ යුතුයි කියලා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා.
Floral tributes were paid by air when the procession carrying the sacred relics reached Kadawata. The initiative was organized by the Kadawata United Trade Union this time as well.
Preparations are currently underway for the Vesak zone in Bebru Place, Colombo 2. Let's now cross over to Newsfirst Katrina Chang, who is on location.
A very good evening to all of our viewers. Now, the final preparation of the Sirasa Vesak zone, organized by the Capital Maharaj Organization, together with the John Keel's Holdings, will be held here for a period of 3 days. Now, the devotees will get the opportunity to pay homage to the sacred relics of Lord Buddha as well as the sacred relics of the Mahavarat Theros. The public will also be able to witness the Teletorana which will be displayed here as well. Furthermore, the Rashmi Vesak zone, organized by the Ministry of Defence, will be held at the vicinity of the Hunupitiya Ganga Rama Temple. So we would like to invite our viewers to be part of this event. Over to you, Ramesh.
Phase 1 of a series of programs organized targeting the youth was inaugurated under the auspices of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in Maharagama today.
Sports equipment were distributed to all island sports associations. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, who attended the event held at the Nawinna grounds in Maharagama, said that the youth parliamentary system will be implemented this August and September. It has been proposed that a sum of 250 million rupees will be allocated for youth projects through this initiative. First, we must decide whether we are to think about the younger generation of this country or the country's political parties. I think the time is right to do this now, because we have been thinking about our parties for the past 60 years. So I would like to tell all political parties that it is time to think about the youth of this country and take over the necessary measures to make it happen. We must create good job opportunities. We must create 1 million jobs for the youth. We must increase the income of the country. It is through this that the future of the youth can be assured.
Drugs were brought in for the youth and unemployment was widespread among the youth. We are now gradually rectifying this major disaster under the 1 million jobs program. We are working towards building a new country for the youth.
Here are some of the views that were expressed by political representatives at events around the country.
Today, the money that only reached the hands of those who obtain commissions is directed towards the poor. During the previous government, when several persons earn money, the farmer remains poor. The money that went only to a few is given to the poor farmers. They are searching for a ring that was lost in Parliament, and the value of it is said to be 2.7 million or 2.8 million. I asked Kumara, if you divide 2.8 million by 40,000, you can calculate the number of pounds of it. It came to 165 pounds. The ring needs to be worn in the belly. That is not one that can be worn in a finger. The Prime Minister is jobless and he is weighing rings and calculating the value of the ring. We do not worship a rock simply because we see it. If we carve a Buddha statue out of the rock, we can worship that statue. Intelligence, modesty, patience and understanding can be obtained by any citizen. A disciplined society is not created although we have carpeted roads, our children receive a good education, or of our lives inside this concrete forest. We need to change ourselves. Mahinda says that do not fear and that he will not contest an election. There is no need to fear of a presidential election because he cannot contest. Basil Rajapaksa, Dallas Alaperuma and Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who have dual citizenship, also cannot contest. These are patriotic American citizens. The benefits will be given to the people.
Several organizations and political parties condemned the attack on senior lecturer of the Colombo University, Dr. Nirmal Ranjit Devasiri.
Dr. Nirmal Ranjit Devasiri was attacked by a certain group in close proximity to a May Day celebration in Kirupane last evening. Dr. Nirmal Ranjit Devasiri was admitted to the Colombo National Hospital thereafter and was discharged today. A media briefing condemning the attack was held today. From what we know, if the police hadn't intervened at that time, that particular group wouldn't assaulted and murdered him at that very ground. That's how brutal this attack was at that instance. So at a time when we have won freedom through a political transition, if a member of the civil society cannot freely go wherever he wants to, if he cannot look into certain things, and if thugs are assigned to assault anyone who is involved in such activities, if you are engaged in politics by the side of the drunk thugs and reign powerful with thugs in political field, the citizens of this common society are under threat. So we should not take this lightly. If the police were there at that time, I begin to wonder why weren't any arrests made. Meanwhile, speaking at an event in Colombo today, Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayake also expressed his views on the attack on Dr. Nirmal Ranjit Devasiri. Certain people who were engaged in acts of terror during the previous government are still doing those very same things within the opposition under a different guise. If any of them had the brain of a lice, they would understand that on the 8th of January, the innocent people of this country protected democracy to completely eradicate the autocratic rule and re-establish democracy in the country. It is those who do not understand this that carry out attacks on people like Dr. Nirmal Ranjit Devasiri. We condemn this.
Dr. Nirmal wage kattiyara gahana එක අපි හෙලා දකිනවා.
The Free Media Movement reiterates that the laws should be enacted on the violent politicians who cannot give up hunting down individuals with opposing ideologies, even without power. The movement has made this statement condemning the assault of former chairman of the Federation of University Teachers Associations, Dr. Nirmal Ranjit Devasiri.
The Free Media Movement issuing a communique says that the assault was carried out while Dr. Nirmal Ranjit Devasiri was listening to the speeches made at the May Day rally organised by the party of Vimal Veeravangsa and groups that support the former president. The communique adds that Dr. Nirmal Ranjit Devasiri was actively involved in bringing about good governance while being a key figure amongst the university community and was an individual who voiced his opinion without fear for the betterment of the society. It further adds that it is normal for such individuals to be interested in views that are expressed at May Day rallies organised by other parties and groups. The movement says that this assault shows how certain individuals cannot give up their ways of violence even after being put out of power. The Free Media Movement requests that the law be enacted on such individuals who act with such violence.
Staying in local news, the body of the Sri Lankan student who died in a fire which broke out at the dormitory of the Pirogov State Medical University in Moscow is to be brought back to the island.
A fire had broken out at the dormitory of the Pirogov Russian National Research Medical University in Moscow about a week ago. The majority of the 40 persons who were injured were foreign nationals. Among them was Sri Lankan medical student Mihira Uvindu Vijayarama.
A fire had broken out in the dormitory of the university. He was sleeping at that time. His friends say that he had awakened and gone in the wrong direction. He had not been aware of it. He had not been able to find his way.
Uvindu had completed 3 years of his 7-year education program at the university at the time of this tragedy.
They say that he had spoken to them and he himself had gotten into the ambulance. So I believe that my son would recover soon.
Despite the treatment provided by the Russian doctors, Uvindu's wounds did not heal and he succumbed to his injuries. The body will be brought back to the country tomorrow and a funeral will take place on Wednesday at the Himidiriava cemetery in Palatota.
On business news tonight, the prices of vegetables at the Manning market in Colombo saw a significant drop today.
Traders at the Manning market in Colombo say that this was an unexpected and sudden situation. With the extended holiday weekend, large stocks of vegetables had reached the Manning market in Colombo and traders have found it difficult to sell their stocks. Traders know that they thus decided to sell these vegetables at lower prices.
Manning වෙළඳ පොළ තුලට වෙළඳ lorry ප්‍රමාණය
More lorries had arrived at the Manning market in Colombo. I believe that those who purchase 500 grams or 1 kilogram are the ones who will benefit the most.
විශේෂ වාසියක් වෙනවා. අපේ බඩු ඔක්කොම අද ඉතුරු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
We have excess stocks. We might have to dispose most of them tomorrow. There are no customers, so a kilogram of tomatoes is sold for 35 rupees. The price are at a low that anyone can purchase sufficient amount of vegetables because there is a 2-day holiday. The expectations of some were that the prices would reach a high as farmers will be on holiday for the next 2 days. However, the prices did not increase, but they decreased. Consumers also commented on the drop of wholesale and retail prices.
There are more goods than other days. The prices are also at a low. 500 grams of beans is sold for 50 rupees. Prices of all vegetables are at a low.
There are vegetables. Some are expensive, but most of the prices are at a low. Traders who are doing business here are providing us with relief. The Manning Market Trade Union had decided to keep the market open until 8 p.m. today in order to sell most of the stocks of vegetables.
A series of medical camps were held in the Mahasimpura Primary School in Valikanda, Polonnaruwa.
The medical camp was organized by the former chairman of the Independent Medical Practitioners Association, Dr. Lakshman Veerasena, together with the Lions Club of Polonnaruwa and the ICBT private campus. Free consultations were given to children suffering from eye infections. Specialist doctors, doctors of the Polnaru Hospital, public health inspectors, midwives, pharmacists and persons involved in the medical field rendered their contribution to the medical camp.
I started this concept of taking a healthcare to the doorstep of the poor way back in 1991 when I was the president of the Independent Practitioners Association of Sri Lanka. Ever since then, we have had health camps all over the island, even during the war, in war-affected areas, and during the tsunami, in tsunami-affected areas.
Pakistan A and Sri Lanka A squared off again today, and the Pakistan A team defeated Sri Lanka A by 6 wickets in the third and final limited overs encounter. Pakistan A, who won the toss and invited Sri Lanka A to bat first, managed to bowl them out for 277 runs after 47.2 overs at the R. Premadasa Stadium. In reply, Pakistan A was able to chase the target and put 281 runs on the board for the loss of 4 wickets in 48.1 overs. However, Sri Lanka A, who won the previous 2 matches, claimed the title for the one-day series. And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Ramesh Rugula Bandara. Good night.